how much can a character learn about the world just by watching a movie? In an early scene in Drishyam, where George Kutti, played by Mohanlal, does something amazing. At this stage in the film, we don't know much about who he is or his backstory, but we do know that it's something to do with the law and that he likes to watch movies. So we are looking for anything that might give us a clue. Now take a look at what George Kutti does in this moment, right after he enters the tea shop. The shopkeeper tells him about the plight of this elderly couple
for
agricultural purposes. But when there were no expected yields, since then a corrupt policeman working with that finance company has kidnapped his son. But since there is no evidence, a direct complaint won't work. A court needs evidence. At that moment, something washes over him. We don't know what this is, but it obviously absorbs him. He seems to zone out and disappear from the room as if he's not even listening to the people around him. He remembers it, a scene from a movie, and suggests that there is a way. By filing a habeas corpus petition through a lawyer, claiming illegal detention, knowing that the police would be forced to produce the boy in court. He anticipates that even the threat of such a case, communicated by a lawyer, will pressure the police department into releasing their son immediately. We won't learn the details of his story much later.
After all, high school വിദ്യാഭ്യാസം പോലും ഇല്ലാത്തൊരു സാധാരണ ഗ്രാമീണനാണ് അയാൾ.
But this early piece of writing communicates the relationship he has with cinema and how that shapes his worldview. That justice in court doesn't care for the truth. So when later his daughter accidentally kills a wild person, he knows that there will be no justice found within this system. When that monster should be the one spending his life behind bars.
പേടിക്കണ്ട, ഇത് ഞാനല്ലാതെ മറ്റാരും കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല, കാണുകയില്ല.
It will be him, or worse, his daughter, who might face the brunt. He understands that justice and truth are two different things. Cinema had already made him realize that in this broken system, the only perfect justice that an uneducated orphan common man can have is by committing another crime of hiding the body and leaving no trace, no evidence, which tells a larger story about the burden he now has to carry his whole life, realizing that cinema can only teach you how to bend the law. It can't teach you how to live after breaking it. That the accidental death of that monster is the only semblance of justice he can ever get. And in this realization, George Kutti isn't just a father protecting his family. He's part of a genre that we as an audience understand the unspoken contract of. The story ends when either the killer is dead or the body is found. There is a finality to it. If you look at some of the best thrillers of this past decade, you might notice a pattern. Take Kahani, it's a masterclass in characterization. But when it comes to justice, it still settles for an equal exchange. An eye for an eye, and I don't mean it as an insult. It's genuinely impressive to see someone craft such a character just by questioning the human body.
My husband is missing.
Vidya, after navigating a labyrinth of corruption, knowing it's death that's waiting for in the garb of justice. Then you have something like Maharaja. We see the same DNA in it. After his grueling battle against both the system and the shadows, Maharaja must end every person involved to protect his daughter's dignity. It operates on the belief that death is the highest price one can extract and the only compensation a victim will accept, even in Vad, which mirrors Drishyam more than any other. For an elderly couple pushed to the brink, the death is framed as a cleansing act. I liked all of these movies. I respect the craft involved in their writing, and I don't think any of them are undeserving of the recognition they received. But I often think that by killing the perpetrator, one is almost granting them mercy. They are gone, but the common man is left to live a life of forever shame, even if that shame is hidden from the world. It's like living in an open-air prison. Every siren they hear, every stranger who looks at him for a second too long, every headline about a missing person is a bar in the cage they built for themselves. The weight that Varun should have carried, the fear of law, the shame of his action, the constant looking over his shoulder, is instead transferred entirely to George Kutti. But there is a different kind of justice starting to emerge. One that takes an even darker turn and extracts a much bigger sacrifice from the victim. To really understand this, we first have to look at this relationship between two men. This is Esposito. He's a retired lawyer. And this is Morales, a man whose wife was brutally murdered 25 years ago, in a case that was investigated by Esposito. He has come to meet Morales, who has been living away from the society for many years,
Pero qué sorpresa.
to make him read the novel he's writing about his case, about how his wife's murder was let go. Even after all the evidence and proof, even after his own confession, just because he had affiliation with the political party in power.
Porque la justicia es una isla del mundo, pero este que está acá es el mundo.
Esposito questions him,
¿Cómo hizo para aprender a vivir sin ella?
without doing anything about it. The thing is, Esposito himself did nothing about it. When Gomez, the person who wronged Morales, goes on to kill his best friend,
¡No!
how can another man also live a life of failure like him? And at that moment, he's almost like seeking an answer.
Para empezar todo de nuevo.
Pasaron 25 años.
An answer that can prove it was all false. That there is some justice left in this world, which can show him the right path, give him closure.
No lo busque más.
Morales confesses that he did eventually kill Gomez and disposed of the body years ago, once the regime lost its power.
Teniente, nadie lo extrañó demasiado.
But something doesn't sit right with Esposito. See, earlier in the film, we have seen his almost uncanny ability to read the truth in people's eyes. It's how he identified the killer, just from a set of photographs.
A mí siempre me parece un delirio esto de las fotos.
It's not luck. It's instinct honed over years.
Es por el tema de las miradas.
And here, that instinct tells him that something is off. Morales is lying.
Ahora estamos a mano.
He takes his leave but bides his time in the bushes, then follows him into the shadows towards a makeshift structure behind his home. And there, he finds the subversion of everything this mystery stood for, everything his novel stood for. He finds Gomez. Not a ghost, not a corpse, but a prisoner, locked in a cage Morales built with his own two hands. At that moment, the film flips the genre on its head. Morales' passion was such that he never wanted the clean catharsis of a gunshot. He refused to grant Gomez the mercy of death. Instead, he chose to become a god of a very small, very dark universe. If the system won't punish Gomez, he would.
No, para mí, la cárcel toda la vida hubiera estado bien.
Not by ending his life, but by presiding over it for 25 years.
Usted dijo perpetuo.
Quite like the secret George Cutti had to hide for many years. Now Morales spent years building a prison, but building a professional home for your own vision shouldn't feel like a life sentence. That's why I want to thank Odoo for sponsoring this video. If you are a creator or an entrepreneur trying to take an offline business into the digital space, Odoo's e-commerce builder gives you a simple way to establish your base. It's completely code-free and surprisingly enjoyable to use. You can set up your online store by just following a few steps to set the layout. Use the drag and drop block system to customize the layouts, add animations and background designs, and shape everything to match your own aesthetic. And if you ever find yourself stuck, their inbuilt AI can even help you generate text and bring your ideas together. To add your product, just add in the name, image and price to take the product page live. You can add variants, description, carousel and much more. It handles payments with Razorpay and shipping with ShipRocket. You can link your store with the social platforms like Instagram and TikTok Shop, with search engines like Google Merchant Store. And to help with the site ranking, use the inbuilt SEO optimizer. And you can access the full suite of apps, starting at just 580 rupees a month per user. You even get a custom domain free for an entire year. So check out Odoo. The link is in the description. Now back to the burden of control. And what did it cost, you might ask? To keep a monster in cage, Morales had to remain on the other side of the bar for that many years. He knew from the moment the system failed that his life was over. He didn't just build a prison, he chose a life that functions only as a watchtower, a gatekeeper.
Es como si la muerte de su mujer lo hubiese dejado ahí detenido para siempre.
A harsher form of justice, a sentence that never ends, doesn't just punish the monster. It transforms the hero into something far more sinister. Ironically, the film was called The Secret in Their Eyes. It went on to win 2009 Oscar
The winner is
for the best foreign language film,
The Secret in Their Eyes, Argentina.
which tells you why it's been so influential for the writers. Why there are so many versions of this justice since then.
Where's my daughter?
And why won't it? It's one of the much harder, more nuanced endings out there. And you don't have to look far to see its echoes. A recent horror gem from Gujarati cinema pulls off a similar idea.
मरा कर कायम माटे. Okay?
But where the Argentine hit dealt with a system rotten to the core, Vash presents a world where the system doesn't just fail, it's rendered useless by something supernatural.
આમને આર્યાનું વશીકરણ કર્યું છે.
Something frantic, relentless, and ancient. Pratap doesn't just break the law, he breaks the wills of Atharva's own daughter, turning her into a weapon against her own family, giving this conflict an almost Batman vs. Joker quality. Uncannily summed up by this shot by Krishna Dev Yagnik, who understands exactly what the story demands.
જમીનની ઉપર નાક રગડીને માફી માંગ.
Because for a monster this archaic,
ભીખ માંગો કગરો.
this deeply patriarchal, death is an escape.
મને લાગવું જોઈએ ને કે હું જ.
So he pushes them towards something far more visceral, anchored by a career-defining performance from Janki Bodiwala, who moves between emotional extremes with terrifying
એ
ease.
લોકો મારી આસપાસ પણ ના ફરકી શકે તારે જોવાનું.
Especially in this scene that will shake any parent to their core. There is a terrifying quality to Vash in its final scenes, where it goes from disturbingly bad to violently worse. And because no one is protected by plot armor, it stops feeling like a movie and starts feeling like the reality of our world. I'm not exactly sure how they pull this off. This almost A24-esque treatment within a much smaller industry, something that's becoming increasingly rare in Indian mainstream cinema. If you have been following the surge in high-concept Malayalam thrillers, you likely already know which film I'm going to talk about now. It is, in my opinion, the most beautiful version of this idea, and one of the most talked about thrillers from last year, Echo. You might think the idea of cage can only be physical, but what if you don't want the audience to know what they're looking at? If you think about it, cage is just a metaphor for control, and all this while it stopped being physical and became psychological, reaching its most terrifying evolution.
I know you're here, bastard.
There are bigger, more dramatic moments in Echo that I could point out as an example, but instead, I want to highlight a very tiny moment we see at the middle of the film. During World War II, Kuriachan, an Indian merchant, arrives at a Malaysian tribal village to study a special dog breed.
Membangunkan pakaian baru.
He has heard that they have unique loyalty and intelligence and almost military quality. The whole village has left because of the war, barring Yosia, the village's patriarch, and his young wife Zoe. Yosia agrees to sell him the dogs, but at a steep price.
Sell up some money, move house to city.
Kuriachan hesitatingly agrees, even when he doesn't believe in their remarkableness.
My dogs, very, very pure.
Kuriachan leaves with Yosia to get money, leaving Zoe alone. But when tragedy befalls Kuriachan and he has to return without Yosia, the dogs get devotedly alert and stop anyone from stepping near the house.
No, no, no.
Their fidelity is so undying that they even trap Zoe in her house, not letting her leave unless their master returns back, going as far as biting her when she tries to, making her unconscious. Kuriachan waits for many days in the rain, hoping for them to disperse. But they turn out to be so intelligent that they start splitting into teams for guarding 24/7.
Okay.
A breed of guard dogs meant to protect a home becomes a metaphor for this invisible control.
Soy! Are you okay?
Can someone love so deeply that they still seek to control, even beyond death? Because somehow that's what the film makes you feel at this moment. The cage doesn't look like a punishment, it looks like care.
But sometimes protection and restriction, they both look the same.
Look, I won't spoil much, but what this scene means and what it becomes later in the movie is a very profound thought. One that takes the idea of control to a whole another level. Its form of justice is so profound that it doesn't even look like justice. It looks like nature. Because the monster it's trying to trap isn't just one person. It's a system of patriarchal control and entitlement. Whether the reason for its emergence is an occultist or a decades-old love, this kind of justice has always and will always have a special place for me in cinema. Because it's something that this medium can do that not many others can. Making the audience sit with discomfort. And make them realize that justice isn't always loud or immediate. Why we are moving away from the finality of death towards something more eternal. It's because we are beginning to reckon with the hard truth.
No!
Violence only begets more violence. Because evil doesn't end, it lingers. And if evil persists, then justice too must persist. For me personally, the best thrillers are the one that stays with you long after the screen goes black. Cinema has a unique power to create that kind of intimacy, which if we are being honest, isn't even present in most of our lives. It's rare to see a faintest flicker in someone's eyes.
Valió la pena.
That can make us feel the weight of 25 years in dark.
No piense más. No piense más.
Or when a frame of the most breathtaking landscape can still make us feel dread about the darker possibilities it holds.
I know you're here, bastard.
And I don't mean that it's the best type of storytelling or only type of storytelling, but it means most valuable to me. And hopefully writers and filmmakers continue to work on them, even if they're not likely to earn a ton of money. If you like this video, you can like and subscribe my channel. It will mean a lot. Thank you.